Well, hello and welcome everyone. In this episode of Numerology Quick Takes, we're going to take a look at the forecast for the week ahead, for week commencing February 10th. This week, we're going to be working with the vibration of the 7. So there's a lot to kind of dive into here, but I want to start this off by sharing 2 quotes by Alan Carr that really sort of get to the backbone of this energy and what we'll really be looking at and working with. So the first quote is, "Trusting an intellectual opinion over and above our own instincts and making intellectual choices based on misinformation leads to an increase in suffering and self-destruction. The key is to realize that we always have options and choices beyond the conditioning." Okay. The other quote is, "Once you see both sides of an argument, you can choose which one to believe. If you only see one side, you're being brainwashed." So I think this really, like I said, sort of encapsulates the 7 energy and what it pushes us to do. So the 7 energy really, and we talked a lot about truth and honesty and all that, and, for last week, because we were in a 6 cycle. But at the 7's core, it's the investigator. It's the truth seeker. It wants to get to the truth of the situation. It wants to get to the core of the information. And so much this week is really pushing us to look beyond the illusions, to not just sit back and be force-fed information or quote-unquote facts without doing our own due diligence, without going deeper. So really, the 7 pushes us towards that critical thinking. It encourages us to do our own investigation and to get to a point where, again, we get to choose what we believe. The facts can be there, the information can be there, but we get to choose what we believe. That's part of being human. Doesn't mean that what we believe is necessarily the truth for all. I mean, it usually doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that, what we choose to believe is better than, somebody else's beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. It just means we get to believe whatever we want to believe. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it the truth. Just means we have that free will to be able to do that. And the 7 says, for your own greater self-discovery, for your own greater opportunities to thrive, for your own opportunities for greater freedom of expression, freedom of being who you came here to be, the true sense of freedom. You've got to do you've got to sort of think for yourself. You've got to do your own due diligence. You've got to be, a critical thinker. And the 7 really pushes us to do that. It's not that we are sort of automatically dismissing or disqualifying the facts or the information that are being presented to us. It just means we want to understand the inner workings of it. We want to understand the why. It's kind of like, if you have a lot of 7s in your chart, then you're likely somebody who, if someone tells you that the sky is blue, you want to know why the sky is blue. You want to understand it. You don't want to just take it at face value. You want to go deeper. You want to understand the why. Because once we understand the why, then we can, once we can sort of define it, and some things are, not definable. But for the most part, when we can understand why something is the way that it is, we can usually feel good about getting on board with it. We can usually, feel good about saying yes to whatever that is and being a part of it and taking action. And so a big part of this week, again, is pushing us to go deeper, to not just take things at face value, to follow our instincts and our inner guidance towards that truth, to finding that truth, to understanding the inner workings, to understanding the why, and to trust ourselves in the process, right? A lot of times especially with all the noise in the world, we can very easily overturn our own instincts, our own intuition, and our own sort of truth, and get on board with things that we normally wouldn't get on board with because we didn't do our due diligence, because we didn't sort of dissect it a little bit further. And so the 7 is saying, don't immediately disqualify your instincts, your intuition, your inner knowing. If something feels off, it probably is. If you're only being fed the highlight reel, there's more to the story. And this is in any area that this shows up for you. Even with our own belief systems, right? Like, it's easy to believe something that we can easily justify. But just because we can justify it, and I'll tell you, anything can be justified. Just because we can justify it doesn't mean that it's the truth of something. It just means that we have found a way to make ourselves feel better by justifying whatever it may be. So the 7 pushes us beyond even the justifications and says, okay, but why is it this way? You know, what is really happening? What's the full story? And that's the investigative side of the 7. It wants to, before it says yes to something or before it says no to something, it wants to understand the inner workings. It wants to know that it's got the full story, or as much of the story as it can have, in order to make an intelligent, informed decision, right? There's a lot about greater self-discovery here, inner development, tapping into our own unique wisdom, tapping into that deeper analytical side of ourselves. And it really pushes us to be, again, sort of the leader within our own lives and trusting our decisions in that process and not being easily influenced by the external. It's not about mistrusting or again, quickly dismissing what's being presented and again, being distrustful of other people and what they're presenting. It's just about asking the questions and getting to the point where we feel comfortable in investing in whatever it is that we're being asked to invest in or take action on. And it's through this process that we can actually merge the head and the heart, right? So again, merge the logical, intellectual side of ourselves with the intuition, with the heart-led side of ourselves. And that's where we have the most power within our own lives, is when we are not easily influenced by the conditioning, by the influence of the external. Not that we're dismissing it or, but we're doing our due diligence. And this energy is a call to action for everyone to step up in that way, in whatever you're facing in life, to not easily follow what you're being presented with. Just do your research. Just go a little bit deeper. The other thing with this energy that's really beautiful is it does require us to take some time for solitude, time for reflection, time for processing, right? A lot of times when we do go deeper, when we are that investigator, when we want to know sort of the inner workings, there's a lot to process. And when we're too impulsive, we don't give ourselves the time for that processing. And a lot of times that impulsivity comes from charged electricity, like charged emotions, right? So someone or something does something that triggers us. And so we've got that amped energy, and we usually will, take action from that amped energy. But the problem is that amped energy isn't giving us an opportunity. If we're too impulsive and we take action from that charged energy of our emotions, it's not giving us ample time for reflection, for processing, to making sure that through our greater self-exploration, through that greater, again, reflection, that's when we're able to respond in a way that feels most aligned, right? And that will give us the greatest results. And it's through that reflection and that processing that we usually will end up with less buyer's remorse than if we just are more reactionary and take our cue from that amped energy. So this week, we could be asked to unplug more, right? Go more into self-soothing mode. Go more into, taking time for yourself wherever you can get it, and really sit with yourself and your thoughts and your beliefs and your values. This is a beautiful week for weeding out what no longer serves you, what is actually impeding your progress forward, or is impeding your, you having the ability to have healthier relationships and connectivity and all of those things. When we can get back to our own autonomy and our own sovereignty, we actually can show up in such a healthier way, in that interdependency. So a lot of interesting energy here. Definitely, if definitely listen to your body this week, because the 7 energy also brings in the need for holistic health. So if something, if your body's asking you for something, listen to it. If your body is overwhelmed by the input, by the noise, unplug. Find a way to unplug this week. Tap in when you need to know something, or when you need to, when you feel called to, or you feel capable of doing that. But wherever it is that you can unplug this week, if your body's asking for that, then do it. Wherever it is that you can self-soothe and replenish this week, do it. Find ways to do it that can sort of recharge you and rejuvenate you. Make sure that you do an energy check. Where is it that you're bleeding your energy out, right? Whether it's trying to be the savior of the world, or whether it's just, through information overload, or just feeling overwhelmed, and find ways to rein it back in. Find ways to put a seal in wherever that is that you've got that seepage of your energy. Where is it that you're surrounding yourself with those energy suckers? And that can just be, again, through doom scrolling, or, connecting with people that just drain you. This is such a beautiful week to, be a little bit more selfish, take time for yourself. Even if it's like on your lunch break, you can go for a walk in nature or feed the ducks or something. I don't know, right? Do something that just grounds you and connects you to yourself and the earth, or, nature, because nature can be very, very healing. Anytime you can do that, I would say this is a beautiful week for doing that. Because it's through that stillness, it's through those opportunities when we do kind of spend time with ourselves that we get to know ourselves. We understand sort of what we need. We understand, what's draining us. We understand, where it is that we're just saying yes because we've been told to, or we're saying no because we've been told to. But when we take the time to sit with ourselves, we start to recognize that's not me. That I didn't want that, or, I don't believe that, or whatever. So it gives us the opportunity to go deeper there. We become sort of the researcher in our own lives. And that is that through that analysis and that connecting to, again, our own higher truth, that we start to say yes to or no to the things that feel most aligned for us, or out of alignment for us if we're saying no. We start to take action that feels much more aligned with who we are and what we want, and we start to see our whole experience change and evolve, because we are stepping into that greater sense of self. At the core of the 7 truly is greater self-discovery, right? It's getting to the truth of who we are as an individual. And then when we're at that truth, we can show up in truth. And that's what makes all of the difference. So I would say, be careful about going into isolation mode, right? And sort of bypassing. This is definitely a time or a week when you can get those answers to those bigger questions. You've got to ask the questions though, and you've got to be willing to do the research and break through, again, the veil and the illusion that's standing in your way of getting to that truth. But you have the opportunity, or we all have the opportunity to get to that greater truth. We have the opportunity this week to have those bigger questions answered, whether we're ready for it or not. But we have to ask the questions. We have to do the research and not just follow in blind faith, not just trust for the sake of trusting. Now, the other thing I would say is this is a beautiful week to come back to yourself, to come back to you, to your intuition, to your instincts, to your greater inner knowing, and to let that be your guidepost. Let that be your North Star. And the more that we actually can do this in life, the less that we'll be led astray, the less that we'll be likely to buy into something that doesn't serve us and doesn't serve the greater good. But we have to get that relationship with ourselves. We have to strengthen that relationship with ourselves. And the 7 helps us to do that. The 7 is ultimately the bridge between the ethereal and the physical, the spiritual and the physical. And, connecting to our higher self, to our inspirations, to our ideas, and bringing that more ethereal side of ourselves into the physical, turning it into something tangible, turning it into something we can work with, that we can build, that we can create, etc. So there is the possibility this week that great inspirations can come in, big ideas, and then you might have the push to do something with that, to create something from that. And the 7 wants you to do that. But not just because you're being told to, but because it feels aligned for you and true for you. So really beautiful energy this week. But, it's what we choose to do with it that makes the difference. But it's really pushing you to, once again, to take back the reins within your own life and to get to the truth of whatever it is that you're seeking the truth on. And in the process, getting to a place where you're merging or marrying your heart with your mind, with your head, the head and the heart, right? They become companions as opposed to working against each other. So if you're somebody who is really over analytical and really stuck in the mind, this is a great week to sort of regulate your nervous system, to kind of go through those thoughts. What thoughts are serving you and what thoughts are actually restricting you or impeding your evolution and progress. And this is a great week to face those, whatever those may be, and not let the mind dictate everything. So yeah, this is a week where alchemy is at the forefront. And so mind, body, spirit, the coming together of that. And it's through that process that we can learn the most about ourselves in this human experience and what we choose to do with this human experience while we're here. So I guess in closing, I would say, trust yourself. Trust yourself. Ask the questions, go deeper, feel into, how you truly feel about the situation, and trust yourself in that process. And you will make the best decisions for you in this moment. So I hope it's a great week. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.